John Redwood.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, prosperity, not austerity, is what we want, and that will be so much easier to achieve when we cast off the shackles of the European Union. It is an institution renowned for its gross austerity, the damage it has done throughout great swathes of our continent, driving young people into unemployment, preventing school leavers getting any job at all, and starving public services of cash. We've seen the terrible damage done in Greece and parts of Italy and Spain and Portugal from these policies. How good we have some freedom to distance ourselves from them, and we will have even more freedom when we take back control of our money and our taxes and our own budgets. And I do find it, Mr. Deputy Speaker, bizarre that I woke this morning to press comment that there would need to be a post-Brexit vote budget. They seem to have conceded defeat, and I'm going to wait to see what the British public really want in a vote that is still to be decided. But they seem to have conceded defeat and said that they would launch an austerity budget if the British people dare to vote for their freedom and their democracy. Well, there is absolutely no need to do that, and I'd like to reassure the British people there would be absolutely no chance of them getting such a budget through this House of Commons, because I don't see any enthusiasm for it by the SNP or the Labour Party. There are many Conservative MPs who, after Brexit, will be voting for lower taxes and more public spending, because that is what we will be able to afford out of the Brexit bonus or dividend when we get that 10 billion a year back, which we send to them and do not get back. And they do so hate it, but no, I can't, because I've got to be tight on time because others wish to speak. But they so hate the idea there's going to be this dividend because they know that money is taken away from us and is not used for the priorities of their electors, their local health services, their local education services, and getting rid of VAT on fuel, a much hated imposition which hits those on lower incomes far more than others, and something which we are legally not allowed to do within the European Union, but which we would be free to do as soon as the British people voted to leave, if that is their wish. But the issue of our membership of the European Union needs to be looked at over the longer term, because all of the gloomy and bogus forecasts we've been getting from the people who wish to remain in are based on the assumption that the single market is some precious and virtuous body we can belong to, which has fueled our prosperity and manufacturing growth so far, and which would no longer be available to us if we left. And of course, they're a lot wrong on both counts. Our membership of the single market has not helped our manufacturing, and when we leave, we will still have access to the single market, just as 165 other countries around the world have access to that market daily without being members and without having to accept the freedom of movement provisions and without having to accept the taxes and the laws that are imposed on us on a wide range of issues that have nothing to do with trade whatsoever. Because the position of the single market, when it came in, did not accelerate our growth rate or our exports and manufactures in any way. The government did a very good long-term survey, and it took the period 1951 to 2007. They started in 51 because you had to leave out the bit immediately after the war when you get a big demobilisation effect, stable year 51. Went up to 2007. You can say that the figures for manufacturing today are identical because unfortunately we had a deep manufacturing recession 08-09 and we're just about getting back to the 07 levels today. And what those figures showed was that between 1951 and 1972, before we joined the European Union, we had manufacturing output growth of 4.4% per annum, and that since 1972, now we're in the thing, there has been absolutely no manufacturing growth at all over that very long time period. If we look at individual sectors, we can see that prior to joining the European Union, our metals sector grew at 3% per annum. It has declined at 6% per annum since we've been in it. Our food and drink industry grew at 5.6% per annum. Before we joined, it's been falling at 1% per annum since we've been in the EU. Our textile sector grew at 2.6% per annum. Out of the EU, it has fallen by 6% per annum since. And we had a 45 million tonnes a year steel industry. Thanks to massive national investment in the Labour government of the 60s, it now does 11 million tonnes only. We had a 400,000 tonne aluminium industry when we joined the EU. We have just 43,000 tonnes left. We had a 20 million tonne cement industry when we joined. We have a 12 million tonne industry left. And we had a 1 million tonne a year fishing industry when we joined the EU. And we have just 600,000 tonnes left now. And some of these industries, particularly the fishing industry, as my honourable friend well knows, have been gravely damaged by our EU membership itself. It is EU rules of the common fishing policy and the quota allocations to other countries against the interests of our own fisher people that has led to a halving of the numbers of fishermen that we have in our country during our membership of the European Union. So far from our experience in manufacturing being benign in the European Union, we have discovered that high energy prices, rigged subsidies and arrangements which help other countries more than ours, and a policy quite often of providing subsidy and grant and cheap loans to manufacturers to literally transfer plants from Britain to other continental countries has been part of the background to this dreadful erosion of our manufacturing. I mean, it's fair to look at manufacturing because, as I think Remain campaigners always say and agree, there is no full single market in services. The single market was completed in goods by 1992. And so we've now had an experience of this single market from 1992 until today, and it has not made any beneficial difference whatsoever to our manufacturing. This very deep-set decline, which has characterized our period in the European Union, was not turned round by the single market measures which were introduced. Fortunately, our services have not yet been damaged by the growing regulation within the EU, but the evidence from what happened to manufacturing is not encouraging for when you look at what might then happen to our services. We already have many cases where the City of London, defending its interests as a financial service provider, finds itself at variance with European rules coming in,